Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Today we're actually going to write. We're writing. I'm really excited about this because I haven't really this before. So it is pretty exciting for me. Sorry about the noise there. So, so far I have 11 pages. You 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 can probably see that this is not English, which newsflash, it isn't. It is actually Norwegian, because yeah, I'm Norwegian. Let me move myself over a bit. There we go. So, I just thought I'd just story so far, and it is as follows. Well, let's bring the music down a bit, actually. That should be good. So, a young man by the name of Greg Rojo awoke from his slumber to the sound of a blaring alarm clock. Tried to shut it off while turning away from the blaring. Struggled with finding it at dawn as it was still dark both inside and outside. Eh, be out. Inside and out. He struggled with finding it at dawn as it was still dark both inside and out. So, kinda need outside. When he finally managed, this is actually getting kind of a. Oh. When he finally managed to stop the blaring after multiple minutes of struggling, he sighed while ruffling his medium long disheveled brown hair and grunted his way out of bed as his feet touched the freezing cement floor, felt shivers all over his body. The floor was covered in garbage bags and dirty clothes. Greg walked across the dark and gloomy room to a dusty and stained wardrobe. He opened a drawer and tried to look inside, but the dim light from the tiny snow covered window made it almost impossible to see anything. Greg proceeded to follow the wall in search of the light switch. After following the wall with the barely functional lighting, he turned on the light and found some used clothes that didn't smell too bad. As he's getting dressed, he hears his parents discussing what to do about him as he still lives with them. After getting dressed, he walked up the stairs to the kitchen where his parents' discussion is getting heated. He ignores them and while making some simple sandwiches for breakfast and leaving for work. As he's heading out the door, his mother says enthusiastically, "Work hard and earn a promotion, honey." The answer she gets is a mere dull yeah from his son. He closes the door behind him. On his way to the tram, he thinks back to high school where everything seemed to be perfect. His parents were nice to him. He had lots of friends, and he and his best friend would do everything together. None of this had happened since then. His parents would never stop pestering him about earning more money. His friends left him. He only saw his best friend to and from work. All in all, his life was in shambles, complete misery. When he got to the tram, it was early and waiting at his stop, that often did in the winter. The only other person in the tram was the one operating it, his best friend. This was a common occurrence. It was winter and there were better alternatives to getting around, like driving and walking. As it got on, his best friend started to chat with him about what had happened to her yesterday at work. He enjoyed the time spent with her, but after a while it became a chore. One of the things she talked about was how people had been flirting with her in every detail about every dangerous situation she had been in. Greg's mental state. This was the last thing he wanted to hear and worry about. And she asked timidly, "What are you going to do next week, Greg?" Greg was puzzled at this question. Oh, ignore. He had not asked anything like that since high school. I don't think I'm doing anything special. Greg answered, confused. Then we're going on a vacation next week to someplace warmer. Got that? Yes. He feels sad. She said as Greg was spacing out and nodding and replying, "Yeah," on autopilot. Then started driving with the best mood one could ever imagine. The way to his workplace, he was teased almost every time she had the opportunity. When this happened, he wished that it would become spring and summer, but she had no opportunity to do this without everybody hearing and interfering. While they were in the last stretch of his commute, he asked a lot of where he wanted to go, the places she wanted to see and visit. Greg, being zoned out, replied, "I'm good wherever you want to go." She then decided they would go to Barbados. Right after she had declared this, she stopped. This was Greg's stop. He hopped off the tram and bid her farewell. Greg turned and looked at the tall and terrifying building in front of him. The sharp and sudden edges on the building made it even more horrifying. He entered through a door that seemed tiny compared to the building. Greg walked over to the wardrobe in the end of the hallway, where his locker was. Greeted those he met on his way over. As he touched the door to the wardrobe, he had his locker in. His boss came and stopped him. "Needed to cover for Mark today. Right, there's no one else that has the knowledge to operate your machine other than him." Begrudging, begrudgingly, he agreed to work Mark's shift on top of his own. After Greg was done with the double shifts, he went home for the day. For a long, boring day. It was in the middle of winter. His 27-year-old body told him that it was even worse than that. The weather was ever changing. It was laying a soft blanket of snow and chilling frost. He covered his ear with a warm and cozy winter hat he had in his pocket. He was wearing a long black coat that he hid most of the ski pants that he wore. His snow-covered winter shoes hit something hidden in the snow in front of him. Fell face first into a small pile of snow. His hat beside him filled with cold and soggy snow. There. As he got up, picked up his hat, and brushed off his coat, he was suddenly dragged into a nearby alleyway, where he was pushed up against the wall. Snow from a pipe hit his head and entered his neck. A voice said, "Hand over your valuables." He was surprised at this, but the snow melted further down his back, and his mind began going faster than a speeding bullet, trying to figure out what was happening to him. "You deaf or stupid?" asked the voice that he had heard earlier. "What are you talking about? What are you doing?" Greg finally managed to mutter out. The voice did not respond, but the voice's fist did. The fist landed square on his lower jaw. Greg was knocked to the ground and winded, and another punch hit his face. Instinctively, Greg curled up and covered his head. The person did not stop and proceeded to brutally kick Greg. When the beating had stopped, and he managed to get up of the freezing ground, he had none of his warm and fluffy outer clothes on. He was almost frozen. All the snow that he was covered by seemed to have been made in a hurry. It had covered most of his body in an attempt of hiding him with his socks poking out. That bastard stole my winter clothes. Really left me with my sweater pants and socks. Fred commented, annoyed. As he got up from the thrown together snow pile, he became dizzy, had to lean against one of the brick walls. The environment was twisting, turning into complex acrobatics. He was stumbling, limping out of the alleyway and onto the streets, putting his intestines not to throw up, barely conscious and alive. His mind went to his family who would fun out of him, make fun out of his situation, barely help him out with some old shoes from the attic and a set of way too small and porous winter clothes. There weren't many people out there on the streets so late at night. As Greg looked up at the skies from the romantically lit, clear and filled with small twinkling white dots, the big shiny and a big shiny moon on it. Wished that he could live something else or somewhere else rather than this miserable and lonely life he was. At the very least, he hoped for a pay raise that would allow him to live with his festering parents. Best and only friend was no better. Would always make fun out of him. Would never listen to what he had to say. He had no problem teasing him and pushing him around. Before he knew it, it was a road crossing that he needed to cross. The light was buzzing with a sense of warmth Greg could only wish to feel once he got home. Eyes were glued to the stars as he wished that someone in his life would care for him, something that he knew was only a pipe dream. He was about to break down. The light turned green. The beeping sound broke him out of thought, alerted him that it was safe to move his snow-filled feet across the icy road. It was sunlight that blinded him. Instincts took over and he covered his eyes to see that it was the night tram that was approaching him. No way of stopping in time. Tried to run out of the way, but it was slippery on the snow-covered ice. He was dizzy and pushed off with his limping leg, caused him to fall right in front of the tram. Deafening horns was blaring and ear-piercing brakes was screeching as Greg looked up at the tram with horror-filled eyes as the sparkling wheels approached him ever faster. Hands moved and tried to pull him to safety, to no avail, as his arms and hips were mercilessly run over and head hit on impact. Greg, at death's door and barely conscious, looked at the tram as it stopped a few meters away, saw three people running towards him. As they came closer, he saw that it was his parents and the driver. His best friend was frantically approaching him. His best friend began crying when she saw who it was she had run over. He wanted to criticize her for only caring just when he was about to die. They arrived. He wanted to turn away, but was capable of doing so due to broken. Hey, Greg, you okay? Best friend asked with teary eyes. Parents were paralyzed and shivering when they saw with their own eyes who it was that was staining the snow and ice red. Cannot die here. Promised that we would go on a vacation next week. Shouted out to him in hopes of him staying a bit longer. Greg could only muster out, I do not for that. Miserable. Best friend was taken aback when she heard his statement. transferred just as taken aback and took multiple steps away. When Greg saw this, face made ever so small, or he could say or hear anything else. He could move his legs, hands a little. Those he had lost mere moments before. Tried opening his eyes. Nothing happened. Neither could he speak. No single sound came from his mouth. Greg tried to feel his way around this the small space he found himself in made it very hard to move his arms around him. There was no way to move around. He was feeling around with his hands. He came to realize that were not much that he could feel with his arms alone. Tried utilizing his legs and feet. Came to touch what felt like another person in this small space. Carefully feeling around, noticed that there was some cord protruding from the stomach of this person. I was dumbfounded at this revelation. On- Only then realized that his body control was significantly worse. After all his shocks and discoveries, concluded that he was a unborn baby with a twin sister. Only entertainment that Greg got was the heartbeat of his new mother. It was slow and comfortable, a sweet and innocent lullaby. Other than that, it was only his mind to keep him company. The only thing that came to mind was that his best friend had said and done. He was confused about what she meant by all those things. With time by his side, he started to think his friends, his parents had said and done the past years. For hours of recalling memories, finally tried to see things through their perspective and actions. Only then did he realize that they really cared about him. His best friend was trying to become his girlfriend. Instantly regretted saying his last words, began to cry. For a long time of crying and trying to come to terms with the situation, he hears what seems to be voices outside of the womb. Greg is unable to understand anything of what they're. There are some consecutively reappearing words, such as Halia and Nair. Has no idea what words are or mean. Judging from all the different voices that are saying these words, things these may be names of someone or something. After what feels like a week or month had passed, there were some sudden changes to his dark and comfy space. Liquid level slowly started to decrease. Greg figured where his birth was soon to begin. Could not wait to see this new world and parents that was waiting for him and his twin sister. Shortly after, he felt a squeezing feeling over his whole body. This odd feeling lasted some time before the pressure began to lessen, beginning from his head. When he was completely out, there was a feeling which he had almost forgotten, was to breathe air into his lungs. Shocked at this revelation, and he began to cry out of discomfort. Not sure about why he was crying, and this was such a normal feeling to him. Just minutes after, he could hear screaming from his mother. This surprised Greg, as he had not moved much yet. As he felt around for his sister, he noticed that she was missing. This made Greg realize that he was becoming an older brother. Soon after, he opened his eyes and was a white everywhere. While some shapes were dark and blurry, except one, it was more of a skin color. Blurry skin colored shape that he thought to be his mother. Skin colored shape had long, bushy caramel brown hair, well as cute face. An anxious man next to her, well trimmed popping ginger hair and sharp features. However, he could only see blurry shapes. After finding out which blurry shape After finding out which flare shape was his mother, doctors took him away from the room where the others were and taken into a room with many instruments. The room had solid cold grey bricks covering the walls. In the middle was a sphere made of unknown properties. The sphere had an odd pushing feeling that as he entered the room began to crush him. Greg tried to punch and kick the doctor who was carrying him, but ended up flailing around to no avail. The doctor noticed this and took another step. Pressure exhaled from the sphere was so intense that he began to cry and immediately. Next thing he sees is the woman with bushy brown hair that he thought it had come from. Smiled at him, touched his nose, which Greg tried to stop her from doing, but the only thing he ended up accomplishing was to make his new mother even happier. He turned to the man sitting beside her, which appeared to be his dad, judging from the scenario was in now. Tried to talk to them, but don't think there were only single sounds that were expelled from his mouth. Doctor to Doctor to the room with the crystals of unknown properties opened. The doctor carried his sister looked like a shocked cartoon how far his jaw had dropped. Greg could not comprehend what had happened due to all the impressions that had been exposed in such a small time frame. Everybody was shocked and talking fast and incoherently. Was given She was then gently given to his mother. She touched Greg's head and said, Zyhar Narani. When she had said those words, Greg felt something traveling through his body. He was submerged in a rapid current, drowning with hope of getting up to the surface before it was pulverized as it was getting dragged down repeatedly, while getting electrocuted constantly. A little bit. A little bit. I dabble every now and then. The pain lasted only moments, and Greg was bawling his eyes out crying. Mother soothed him with her gentle and caring voice and touch. After Greg, now Greg stopped crying. Okay, there we go. Now it looks better. After Greg now had stopped crying, he touched his twin sister on her head and said, Clown Narani. His sister smiled and giggled when their mother did this. This shocked Greg to every corner of his mind. The feeling he had just experienced was nothing like the one Clowny had. Without thinking and letting instincts take over, he tried to slam his palm into Clowny's head. When the mother saw this, she moved Greg back, so he did not hit his sister. Instead of hitting his sister, his palm hit the mother on the stomach. The mother was obviously pained by this to everybody's shock. Father picked up Greg so that he would not hit his sister or his mother. This resulted in the father getting hit, expressions of pain forming on his face. Greg began to get angry and red cracks appeared on his hand. He continued to hit his father in an attempt of getting down. Father talked with doctors, was escorted out of the building where he was born. What Greg saw shocked and amazed him. There were buildings made of stone and wood, lampposts made of sturdy wood and iron, strange rocks protruding out of the top shakable posts. No roof over the strange rocks. The only thing holding it down seemed to be wires going over and around the tip of the post. These lampposts were located all along the beautifully paved roads with clean pavement. Each side of each side in between the stylized houses and buildings. When Greg saw this beautiful sight, he was stunned by the magical scenery. There were people walking by in high stature clothes, Some of those prevalent with farmers, and others with armor and swords. Just wore cloaks with magical looking fun seeing people with swords and magic staffs. Thought to himself, must be a world with magic. No other explanations for the weird looking lamppost. People walking around with armor, swords and magical looking staffs, right? Burly and rough man with a sword on his hip and bow and quiver on his back approached the two of them and began talking to the father. Greg could not understand what the two of them was talking about, but from the way they acted in front of each other, he figured they were close. In the middle of the conversation, he was handed over to this stranger as they continued to talk and laugh about things. The burly and rough man turned Greg around and looked at him in the eyes and said, "You'll grow up strong, become a great man, sire, like me, your grandfather." Oh, wait, oh, there we go. Greg realized that this man spoke English. Tried to, he tried to talk to him. The only thing he could muster was a meager ah. He began crying as it did not work. Shortly after, Greg was handed over to his father again, much to Greg's displeasure. The three of them then walked into the building, back to the room where Greg was born. Upon being given back to his mother, Greg fell asleep instantly. When he awoke, he found himself in a wooden crib next to his sister. When he looked up at the delicate old wooden ceiling, a new face suddenly intruded on the beautiful view. Greg was not sure whether this was a man or a woman, due to the facial features it had. It was picked up from the crib. Got a closer look at the person that picked him up. He was even more confused. The person had long blonde hair, sharp and sudden facial edges, tall and burly stature, voluptuous breasts. He was then put down on a white woolly carpet, given wooden toys that represented animals. Ecstatic at this sight, wanted to move over the animals right away, but could not move from where he was placed. The person left and came back with his mother that proceeded to sit down and play with the animals. They then lifted Greg off the ground. He made a cute sound from the shock. Was put down. His mother had put him on her lap, continued to play with animals and imitating their movements. I was fascinated that they had many same animals that he was familiar with: cows, chickens, along with what looked to be horses and sheep. Sister woke up hours later. It had passed so fast that it was midday already. After the twins were both fed with extreme embarrassment and unbearable humiliation on Greg's part that caused the feeding to day long. The day after, once the twins had woken up and been fed, their mother picked them up and took them out of the room. Once they were in the hallway, the mother was greeted with Namakarina Halia. After the third consecutive greeting, figured that it had to be the equivalent of a good morning in this language. They entered room after room, one after another. Greg tried to remember where the different things were in case something were to happen. While walking through the building, he realized that the building was in the shape of a blocky U. In the east end of there was a there was an office with a lonely desk covered in a titanic mound of paper. And surrounding the desk with so many shelves that if it was not for papers and binders in them, it could be mistaken for a library. Behind the titanic mound of paper, the man scratching his head, one hand a quill, the other writing, with no stop in sight. Once their mother called out to him, he looked up over the immense mound of work that needed to be done and picked up Clowmy. He only paid attention towards Clowmy, while completely ignoring Greg. He looked at his mother and saw a sad and pained expression on her face. Walked out of the office with only Greg in her arms. He hardly went to the west part of the building, showed Greg around there. The room that amazed Greg the most was the one at the end of the west part. It was an enormous personal library that could dwarf public libraries. I was amazed at the sight and wanted to investigate every nook and cranny of the books. Mother noticed this and found a book with four weird looking silhouettes of people with weapons. Two of them sat down in front of a table with Greg sitting on the lap. Look at many pictures that describe the story for him. The book was surprisingly captivating for a children's book. He learned that this continent had four countries called Aisk, Abilis, Ertnut, and Netvek. Also learned that there was once four people, each from a different world, that had heeded the desperate call for help that the four cardinal gods of fire, water, wind, and earth had sent out. These four heroes founded four countries on their adventures across the continent, each of the main cities being called Fjorton, capital of Maisk, Neaton, the capital of Rabilis, Kalv, capital of Netvek, Hampton, the capital of Ertnut. The place that Greg had been born in was the capital of Ertnut, the peaceful earthern city Fempton. Once they were done reading, Clammy, the father, came in, and Clammy was bawling her eyes out. Mother figured that she was hungry, fed her, and Greg watched Greg's demise. After the twins were done feeding, they were both transported to the room where their crib had subs- substantially shrunk and could now only fit one baby. This shocked both the mother and Greg. Mother looked back at her husband and began to interrogate him to put Greg to bed. The twins could not ever sleep in the same bed ever again. Their contact would be minimal. As 2 years passed in this manner, Greg had made a substantial effort to learn the language, thanks to his mother, Halia, reading for him, and learned that his name was what she had said while touching his head, Zyhar Narani. He learned to crawl and walk, which made his mother overcome with unending joy. He had come to enjoy her company, accepted her as his new and over affectionate mother. Was still not sure about the gender of the man or woman that he saw once he woke up from his crib for the first time. Was afraid of asking such a question. Also learned that everybody had some game-like interface that was called a system. Here they could see their name, abilities, skills, magic type, and more. He did not see anywhere. No matter what he did or said, it was hopeless for him. Father did not show himself that much around him his room while he would visit Sister Clima's room whenever he had the chance. The only time Zyhar saw him was around dinner time. Even then, he looked tired and sick. For such meetings, Zyhar he went to the library. His mother, maid, or butler read for him. One day, during a depressing dinner with his family, He heard his father Nair talk about the increasing criminal activity of and the people, pets, and livestock going missing. Alia got concerned upon hearing this shocking news. Kept pestering her overworked husband over the children's safety. Nair sighed time after time. There won't be anything happening to the child. There are precautions in place for them. Alia calmed down a bit upon hearing this, before realizing that Naya was talking about their child, not children. This realization came forth. She got so extremely angry that her husband to the point where to pure rage, it looked like she was shocked with high volt electricity. Her eyes with fiery, scorching slits. She berated every living cell in Naya's body, without any end for hours. Maid managed to sneak Zyhar out of there. He sought refuge in the library, where he met a new girl that seemed to be of 16 years of age. Had brown hair and looked like she was getting to know the place. Zyhar approached her to try and scare her. She turned around, not because she figured him out, but what she had called him, young master. Could not utter another word for some time before saying, "Where the call me that?" Took a step back at the revelation, covered her mouth. Eyes looked like they were finally going to pop out. When he saw this, he said, "There's no reason to be so formal. Read some stories from me." Sarah could see the shock lessen, her shoulders lower, as she complied with his demands. Time flew by for Zyre. She learned more and more about this world, thanks to the girl reading heavier topic books about the world. Learned that there had been re- that he had been reborn into a world with swords of magic. People hunt monsters as heroes goes on epic quests to kill dragons and other mythical creatures in fairy tales. Dense forest in the middle of four countries, dangerous monsters that resided in the known forest. Dansky forest like an impenetrable forest fortress due to the little light that passed through, expands an all-consuming treetop, thick tree stems, rough terrain. To the east of the continent, there was a floating island called Stone's Land that flew in the air a few hundred meters above sea level. No land close to it. He handed the girl another book. Mother opened the door as such force that all the bookshelves fell over with a crash, flung books everywhere. Mother then worriedly shouted out, "Zyhar, where are you? What if you can hear me?" I only got crying in response. She did not recognize the crying. Was lost in thought, trying to piece together who was crying. Zyhar came crawling from underneath the fallen broken bookshelf. Looked at himself as there, as there was a burning sensation from his left shoulder, left hip. Little did Zyhar know that this would form a recognizable scar. Checking for body damage, he looked at his surroundings in a state of complete and utter disbelief. He could not believe his surroundings, with tall and majestic bookshelves broken and fallen over, with their excitingly unknown contents spread everywhere, on the floor and in the air. He heard from behind him sobbing cries, caused him to stop everything, before entering panic mode and frantically looked for the crying. From where he had crawled out from was the very last place he looked before he saw the girl stuck under a heavy bookshelf. Tried to get over to her. but he was too small and weak to climb over the bookshelf. Then tried to get to her by crawling through the tight space he came from. Tried to push. Wait, no, there. He tried to push the solid bookshelf off her, but could only manage to scrape it off her before his strength gave out on him. We'll be right back with help. I think we'll be all right, he reassured her after trying to lift it off her. Zyhar broke out in full sprint among walls of bookshelves and brutally ripped the pages out of the books while slipping on them like a banana. When he arrived in front of his mother, he pulled on her dress with all his might. This made a rift in the red, dark rose red fabric, made her look over the mo over the most extreme look of grieving guilt that he had ever seen. With teary eyes, after the brief look into her eyes, exclaimed, "Need help. There's someone trapped under the bookshelf over there," while pointing out the general direction. She realized that her child was mostly unscathed. She busted out in joy and laughter, embraced Zyhar in her arms, processing that he had just said. There were multiple minutes where Zyhar was frantically trying to get down, led her with the stuck girl. His mother finally asked the question he was waiting for. "Where is she?" She asked with a sense of urgency. Zyhar pointed to the bookshelf where she was, and before he realized it was a iron path, void of valuable books, loose pages, and heavy bookshelf. Only when they arrived where she was laying did they realize that the crying had stopped. Mother put him down and began chanting something completely incomprehensible to Zyra's ears. She was done. She touched the bookshelf with a light tap, before lifting it like it was a mere pebble. She then ordered Zyhar to stay right where he was standing, an unseen and terrifying fearful gaze before storming out of the room, the girl and leaving Zyhar alone, what he believed to be a war zone. It was a man dressed in butler clothing walking into the hallways. There was a sudden big crash coming from up ahead. When he arrived, a woman bust out of the door with a person in her arms. She was hurtling down the hallway and she shouted, "Take care of my child or you're dead!" The now terrified man walked up to the broken door and investigated the once majestic library, now desolate and destroyed. Careful steps and a vigilant gaze, he entered, followed the path made by Zyhar's mother, where he saw Zyhar standing with the back turned to him. Crouched down, not to be seen that easily by Zyhar, so now they were at eye level. Steps became silent, and they were not a sound made from his direction. While crouched, he walked slightly diagonally, like a tiny monkey on the jungle floor. With a rapidly ramping speed, he silently approached Zyhar, covered Zyhar's mouth, and bound his arms. Butler then stood up and chanted something incomprehensible. Zyhar felt weird inside, like there was a fire burning in his chest and scorching the lava right under his skin. He began to wiggle around like a blind worm underwater. Pain was excruciating, with no sign of stopping anytime soon. He passed out. He did not realize that he and the butler had jumped out the window, was now running from his home. After jumping out the window, there was suddenly a lot of voices coming from the door. The butler began to panic. He had not anticipated that backup would come so soon. When he was at the top of the wall surrounding the manor, someone from the library shouted that Zyhar had been kidnapped. The now kidnapper began to realize what situation he was in, began to quickly hasten his rushing speed. There was only one destination in mind as he was hurtling down the streets of Fenton. As the kidnapper rushed in between the majestic buildings, an alarm began screeching. On hearing this alarm, he began to run zigzag in between the blocking buildings. Oops. As he got to the first hilltop of Chill, he threw a board onto the ground. The board was similar to a snowboard, but a magical device in the middle of the feet. He jumped onto the board, fastened the foot covers, was connected to the device in the middle of the board. The last cover was fastened. The board started to levitate 1 meter above the ground. The kidnapper started to fly down the hill faster than a galloping horse, while taking alternative routes to escape the second layer and the main road paved with marvelous granite. Roads became cobblestone and dirt as he approached the first layer. He became ever so closer to escape the city. On arriving at the first layer, the kidnapper took many turns right after the other. He approached an abandoned shack at the end of the first layer. Suddenly, he started to fly higher and higher to an astonishing 5 meters above the ground. Once he was at the top of the rotten and shady roof, he shot to the sky, as if there was a powerful magnet that repelled him off. With the momentum he was carrying, he became a shooting star across the evening sky. He looked down to the houses and streets with heavy hues of gray. To make sure he landed safely, he looked towards forward and saw the time freezing sunset going down behind the wavy hills and mighty trees. He only regained focus after he could only see the sun disappearing behind the stunning environment. After regaining focus, he looked down and saw the Fenton Lake. This the kidnapper could not be any happier about, as this would make the magic trail much harder to follow. He could get rid of the magic board in the deep and wide lake. As the magic propulsion hit the water, the descent began to slow down. This was not enough to stop them. It cushioned the fall substantially, enough for them not to get hurt. Kidnapper is swimming to the surface with the board attached. Realized that his excessively much weight dragging him down. In order to make it to shore and get rid of the magic trail, I need to take off the board now. Inconvenient and troublesome. To get away and reach Kansky Forest, I have to. The kidnapper thinks to himself as he sinks even further into the gaping abyss below. In order to take off the foot covers, he needs to let go of Zyhar and risk losing him. So far, so good. What do you think? I am far from done. I am, well, really getting started. Hey, won't you go? No, what is going on? Something's wrong here. And hopefully that fixes it. Yeah, what do you think? Really do hope it's fun because I've had a blast writing this. On seriously, Okay, be right back. What I'm gonna say, because goddamn, that is something. I have to pull up the document again. Now everything seems to be correct. Oh, damn it. Mark everything. Sure, it is correct. If this could go further, faster down, that would be amazing, but no, of course not. What is wrong with this? Huh? What's going on? Oh, they can't actively listen. Well, that's okay. That's okay. But to summarize the story in short, it's uh, it's this guy that lives a pretty miserable life. He then gets run over by his best friend and parents. He gets reborn into a world with magic, where, fun fact, he is magicless. He has the equivalent of ki, where he gets really strong, and he is now getting kidnapped. Oh yeah, the father doesn't like him, by the way. Absolutely hates him, and uh, just despises him just for being just for having not a sliver of magic. And so far, I really enjoy writing this. Oh, holy moly. That was dry. That was really dry. Well, let's see. We now know what the story's about. We have we remember where we were, where we left off. So what would want you right here? Because in this situation, the kidnapper has to take off the foot covers in order to make it to shore. But in order to do that, he needs to let go of Zyhar and risk losing him, which is, in all honesty, it is a dilemma. It is definitely a dilemma. So that is, in my opinion, pretty good and fun. Uh, where that goes. Okay. Good. And I kind of want him. Well, he has to let go of them. He has to let go, and so either almost lose him or completely lose him. I don't know. You guys have anything like to say about it? Any hints? Any help? How about he loses him? That might actually work. For the later plot point in the story, I might be able to make that work, where he loses him in the water. Let's see. Oh, not Norwegian. Is everything in Norwegian? Please don't tell me it is. But everything is in Norwegian. English, USA. Just do that. Let's go. Let's go Zyhar. Much uh hesitation and there. Where's the child's oh, going against orders? Does that work? That is the thing. Does it actually work? Hmm. His orders were to not let the child go no matter the cost. But his primal are oh, that needs to it's, it's this um, oh, in this moment where he loses of oh he loses he loses reason. He for bits to up Zyhar gives him underneath surface. Oh, it's 1-0. Okay. Leaves him underneath the surface. Um, this is a lake. What can be inside of a lake to help him? Um, oh, traveling boat maybe? I think so. But traveling traveling boats. Um, how do you write seas? There. That's a person and child's crashing into the calm visit again. Oh, figured out how to write it. Serene. Uh, let's see what we've written so far. Let's let's go of Zyhar with much hesitation and fear. His orders were not to let the child go, no matter the cost. His primal instincts are telling him that he needs to get to the surface, no matter the cost. This moment where he loses reason, gets to pick Zyhar, gets to pick up Zyhar, leaves him underneath the surface. A traveling boat sees that a person and a child is crashing into the calm and serene lake, and into the calm and serene lakeside. Only one of the two comes up water. They panic and rush over. They that is not how you write a pun. But opium. Wait. Yes. Ah, fun driving. Where by her. Her. It was one too many days. the stove into the water, like rocks. One of the two, the small boat dives uh, this black into the blackest of black water. That's not how you write. So, in order to save our round, let's go to a new page. The fearless. No, English. Hey, the fearless person. That was not here. Is very is times further down. On there. Um, I don't think this is gonna be H and L, H or G. It's gonna be any of the woods. Take them. Oh, they are. They are right there. They're more like homages. You get what I'm trying to say. Mm, way more like homages. What did I just do now? Mm, hope it wasn't something bad. Oh, holy moly. How do you want to do this? He swims further and further down. Oh, changed his Ing- Trying. His instinct's trying to stop him. Pushes onward, onward. No. And so, so, uh, so preservation. Is that it? Self preservation. Oh. Okay, do we want this to be a him or a her? Hmm. Might actually be fun. We're gonna do a her. Oh, this might be a good time to introduce that character. Oh, I might actually do that. Might actually just do that. No sense of self-preservation. Hands, which is something. Feel feels like the body. And and sees senses for a second before grabbing the closest thing. However, a body part. This body part available. The seems like uh saying rabbit fish the aiming to insane rabbit fish trying to reach the moon with uh, no. Went action. So we are Or uh, what was my plan? I had a plan. I had one. I had one. Just don't remember which one it was now. Yeah, that's an an. This seems like an. Seems like an insane rabbit fish trying to reach the moon. That's it. That's it. Here we go. The oh, struggles to reach the surface in time as he loses her grip on Zyhar. Just a moment, just a moment. Oh, I'm back. Sorry for that. Where were we? Yeah. She loses her grip on Zyhar under water. Um, the panic sets in further as what's it called? It's in even further. Not for not get up with Zyhar. Water bags woman and Zyhar into the boat where the person that tested fell was a woman woman that drove into the water in Mr. Cough and realizes that the other one needs to save Zyhar. Was there. Needs to say it's not. They want a spell. A spell. Yeah, the person that was in boats casts spell egg her side Zyhar's out. Water a shout together. Um, Bud and yeah, go. Crimson blood. Becky black go. Um, Zyhar oozes. No, 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 no. Is not gaining. So that works. No. Consciousness. Not regaining consciousness. Oh. Okay. Ooh. valuable. Uh, woman that no. Um, thing- Soaking wet woman. Then her bag the uh, bag the person contests go into bags, knowing what she is. Just because it's not looking right. Does not now not not mean use that. Just because it's not looking good right now does not mean we should put that mask on. Remands. Just because it's not looking good right now does not mean we should use that mask on. Person reprimands. Uh, matters this point. Uh, I'm 7 meters. Just for I says. Let's see. Let's see. Give that. Tails said 6. Is pushes. Person said. Oh, come on. Oh, no. I don't even use bookmark. Push USA. Then finds in cloth. Symbols. The cloth. Taken off. Mask. Of the for first time in 100 years of mask. Guess what the mask's name is? I don't. Oh, wait. Okay, we're good now. Um, mask white. Times gold. Mask is white with trims details of gold on it. You know, Mm, details of silver. Details of silver on it. Wastes. Oh, and it's glorious. Glorious. It's glorious radiance. But put it on Zyhar. But then station. A little later. Go. It's just a bit of foreshadowing for the later stages of the story. So ask. It's time to Zyhar's. Isn't that right? Oh no. Conscious face. Wakes him up. When he looks around him. After wake up. Nothing but black and purple. Nothing but black and purple. Then out of nowhere, there sound resonating. This Mm, there we go. But I'll have to call it a day here. And a blast, but fortunately, fortunately, I'm not still the best. Kind of sick, so I'll have to go now. Been a blast, I have to say. They just mark the thing we've written here in reds. Okay, now we know where to start next. Might I actually write more off cam, but we'll figure that out sometime. So until then, have a good one. Stay healthy, unlike me. Have a good time, and yeah, enjoy your time.